What's up, everybody? I decided to do something a little different today. Now, normally we just make videos on Friday nights when we're playing at the shop, but I decided to do a deck tech video for this Rakdos list that I've been playing. So the idea kind of came to me when I saw Cecil and Dark Confidant both being printed. So Cecil is this creature that whenever it deals damage, you lose that much life, and then if you have half or less of your starting life total, it flips. And on the other side, it's a 4/4 lifelinker, and when it attacks, it gives other attacking creatures indestructible. And then Dark Confidant, of course, is a huge card advantage engine. So you're looking at the top card of your library and putting it in your hand every turn. So I thought that I could make a Rakdos list that functions like a mono red list, but uses Dark Confidant for extra cards. So I took those two cards, and then I added Slick Shot, because that's a really good red aggro card, 4 Kumanos, and then 4 Swift Spears. And then I took because we're playing black, why not run 4 Fatal Pushes, probably the best removal spell in the format, and then 4 Thought Seizes. So this also helps you lose life, which then accelerates flipping Cecil to the other side. So I thought with the Thought Seizes and Dark Confidants and Cecil himself, doing damage to yourself, that we could get it to flip pretty quickly. And then I added a few red spells, just Bolt Waves for damage, Monstrous Rage, because it's a really, really good card, and combat trick, and then 4 Play with Fires. So Play with Fire is nice because you can hit a creature if you need to, or you can hit a player for more damage, and then it also gives you that scry, which is really relevant if you're looking for maybe an extra land, or at you're in top deck mode and you're just trying to find something. And then one thing I'll note with Cecil is that because of the legendary rule being specifically 2 creatures or 2 permanents with the same name, if you have Cecil Dark Knight and Cecil Redeemed Paladin both in play, you don't have to legendary rule them. So you can flip one and then play the next copy. And then if you're gaining life from that one attacking and losing 2 life, essentially you're never going to lose enough life that you have to flip the second one over. So you can have both of them in play and probably still be able to attack with both of them, so that's kind of nice. And then for the lands, we got 1 of each basic, 2 Mutavaults for extra creatures, 1 copy of Urborg, and then I've got dual color lands, so there's 4 Black Cleave Cliffs, 4 Blightstep Pathways, 4 Blood Crypts, 1 Sulphurous Springs, 1 Dragon Skull Summit, and 1 Blazemire Verge. Now the reason I've got these 2 off to the side here is because I actually didn't like them. I didn't realize it when I made the deck list originally, but there's only 7 lands with basic types, so a lot of the times the Dragon Skull Summit was coming into play tapped, and then the same kind of thing with Blazemire Verge, where you have to have that basic type to produce red, and with a lot of the deck being red, there was a lot of times that it could only tap for black. So in the next version, I end up cutting those, so we'll talk about that in a minute. For the sideboard here, I've got 3 copies of Raise the Effigy. This one, it's in one mode, it's a pump spell, so it can always be used, to get more damage in. But the other mode is destroying artifacts. And then I tried to keep most of the spells with a low mana value, just so that Dark Confidant doesn't do too much damage to myself. But Brett plays that deck where he's making, construct tokens and going really wide. And the engine that makes those tokens is something that I want to destroy. So I put the raises in there for that. In a pinch, you could use it against the Greasefang deck too. And then I have 3 copies of Anoint with Affliction. This is mostly used against Greasefang because exiling the Greasefang is important. They're able to get it back with the Black Overlord, so being able to exile it means they won't be able to get it back. And then I had 1 copy of Witch's Vengeance because of the elf player at the shop. Just being able to target the elves and hopefully wipe the board and get some damage in. And then scroll down a little, so we've got 2 copies of Dark Betrayal. This was mostly against Shieldred. Could be used against the Greasefang deck too if you needed more cards to put in. And then I had 3 copies of Duress to put in against control decks, just to be able to protect my creatures a little bit better. And Hand Disruption is always good against control decks. And then I had 3 copies of Torch the Tower, and this was primarily for Phoenix, to be able to exile the Phoenixes. And then there's 2 notes with the deck. So the Kumanos are enchantment creatures, and the monster roll token is an enchantment token. So if you put in the Torch to the Towers and you needed to hit a 3-drop, you could use one of those for the bargain cost. And then I made a few changes to the deck the second week that I played it. And I don't have Soul Scar Mages on Arena because of wild cards, so let me separate these out a little bit. So let me see, I have notes here. So I took out the 2 lands, the Blazemire Verge and the Dragon Skull Summit, and I put in 2 more copies of Sulphurous Springs. And this lets you kind of play with your life total a little bit more, which is kind of cool. So you could like tap it for colored mana even if you don't need it, just to do damage to yourself to be able to flip the Cecil. So it's not irrelevant, but it's not really a huge thing. And then let's see, I took out the 4 Thought Seizes, and the reason for that was because it felt too much like a mid-range card and not enough like an aggro card. And you might be thinking like the hand disruption and like the information gained from the Thoughtseize is really valuable, but I just want to do damage as fast as possible, and the Thoughtseize was actually kind of holding back on that. So I took those out. I took out 1 copy of Fatal Push, and the reason is because while it might be the best removal spell in the format, it didn't feel right in the deck. Because there was oftentimes like my opponent didn't have a creature and I had a Fatal Push in hand, and I would have rather been able to use a burn spell to their face instead of holding a Fatal Push. So I felt like it's just kind of holding back the damage potential of having spells. So then I cut 2 Bolt Waves just because they don't hit the face. Or I'm sorry, they don't hit the creatures, they hit the face. And sometimes you need kind of creature removal to be able to get through with your attackers. And then I did cut 1 copy of Cecil, and I'm not too sure if that's correct or not, because you can have both sides in play. So normally with a legendary, I would probably only run 2 or 3 copies. So I cut 1 copy. I didn't see it very often last week, so I don't know if maybe 4 is correct or maybe 3 is correct. So the argument can be made either way. And then what I added, so Ryan and I had talked about Wizard's Lightning in round 2. And the reason I didn't include it initially was because it's a 3-drop. So flipping it with Dark Confidant can hurt a lot. But of course, that's kind of the idea behind the deck, is hurting yourself and getting below 10 life, flipping Cecil over. But then once I looked at it a little bit closer, the Slick Shot's a wizard, the Dark Confidant is a wizard, and the Soulscar Mages are wizards. And then you also have the 2 Mutavaults. So you have a good number of wizards to reduce the cost, and even if you only have 2 lands in play, you can activate the Mutavault with its own mana, turning it into a wizard, and then use the Wizard's Lightning for the other 1 mana that you have. So you can kind of cheat that down to a 2 cost if you have to. And then I added, let's see, 1 Titan's Strength as just a pump spell for combat. And I did change the sideboard quite a bit. So I left the Dark Betrayals and the Raises. I pulled out a Torch to the Tower, a Duress, and the Witch's Vengeance maybe, something else. But I added 2 Professor's Warnings. I was going to put these in against removal decks. Sometimes you just need to get 1 more attacker through for lethal damage, so giving Indestructible during combat could be useful. And I figured, in a pinch, it's also just like a small pump spell. And then on Arena, I was playing against the mono black deck quite a bit, and I put in Long Goodbyes to use against Graveyard Trespassers. Since Long Goodbye can't be countered, and it literally says it in the reminder text there, the ward doesn't matter on the Graveyard Trespasser, so you don't have to discard a card. And then I also played against the Angels deck quite a bit, and honestly it feels like I can't win that matchup because they gain so much life. So I put in Roiling Vortexes to be able to stop their life gain. I don't know if that's even going to be enough to overcome the life gain, or just if it's just an unwinnable matchup. So that might be a waste of 2 sideboard slots. And then, yeah, this felt a little bit better last week. It felt a lot faster with the extra burn spells that can hit face. And then with the Soulscar Mage was a nice addition too, just having the extra prowess. And then hopefully, if I can find the cards, I have a 3rd version that I want to try this week. So I really, let's see, I took out the 2 Bolt Waves and the 1 Titan's Strength, and I put in 3 copies of Opera Love Song. And so you could also use Light Up the Stage. It is a 3-drop, and it is a sorcery. That's the downside. But every time I've used Light Up the Stage, it's like I have to attack to get the spectacle trigger, and then I end up like wasting prowess triggers by casting it after combat. So I wanted to try Opera Love Song this week. It can be used as a pump spell to give 1 or 2 creatures 2 power, and then it could also be card advantage. So then you would have the 4 Dark Confidants plus the 3 Opera Love Songs for card advantage. And then I will say one thing to note about this is that it's until your next end step, not the end of your next turn. So if you use it on your own turn, you lose access to those cards when you end your turn. So if you're going to do it pre-combat to find extra spells and you have more mana, then it's, it could be worthwhile. But if you cast it like after combat or something, or you've already played your land, then it's going to kind of be a waste. But you can play it on the end of your opponent's turn to have an extra 2 cards on your turn. And then the other thing I want to try, instead of the Professor's Warning, I wanted to try Vincent's Limit Break. So it doesn't give indestructible, so the creature could still die to a removal spell, but it also has the advantage of being able to change the creature's power and toughness. So you could make, if you do it on a Soulscar Mage or a Slick Shot, make it a 5/2, it still has those prowess triggers on top of that. So it really raises the power of the creature. So while it doesn't get the damage through if they use a removal spell, you could use it as a combat trick or just get your creature back. So I want to try that, and I want to try the Opera Love Songs if I can find them by tomorrow. And otherwise, I believe this version of the deck those are the only changes to this version. So anyways, thanks for watching. If you have any comments about this deck, go down in the comment section, tell me what you would change, tell me what you think is good or bad in the list. I honestly think that Mono Red is just the better deck, but I just don't want to play it. So I wanted to play something with Dark Confidant. But yeah, let me know what you think, and thanks for watching.